We are live. What's up, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great day so far. I'm here with a very special guest. I got Kevin Fielder, State of the U contributor. Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. It is a pleasure, man. Kevin, introduce yourself because I know you got a lot of great things going. You're a very young man, and you cover FAU sports, State of the U contributor. I mean, you're everywhere, and you're out of Palm Beach County as well.
Yeah, so obviously my name's Kevin Fielder, as Paul so greatly mentioned. I am a contributor writer for State of the U, where I cover Miami Hurricanes football. I'm also a writer for Fifth Quarter, where I cover both Miami Hurricanes football and FAU football. I'm an FAU student and going into my sophomore year. And I also cover some high school football in Palm Beach County on the side for New Era Prep, where a local FAU or local kind of website that covers mostly high school football and high school athletics. And I'm kind of one of the lead writers there.
Awesome. Very cool stuff, Kevin. And yes, by the way, guys, if my internet connection does go down like my last interview, it will be recorded. So we'll make sure to get that video up shortly. Kevin, let's talk some Canes football real quick, man. The Manny Diaz hire, Mark Richt retiring. I think we can all agree it was a complete shock that Mark Richt retired, after the Wisconsin game, the Pinstripe Bowl. Did you like the Manny Diaz hire?
I did, because I think the biggest thing was you looked at what he did on defense. And the defense under Manny Diaz was one of the best defenses in the nation. And when you can have that good defense and you can pair it up with guys who like Manny Diaz, a lot of players like Manny Diaz because he was a passionate coach. He kind of knew the Miami area. Remember, he's born in Miami. He's raised in Miami. And so when you know the area and you know how to handle the area, everything becomes a little bit easier. So I did like the hire at first. And maybe they should have gone for more of a national search, and maybe they should have opened up their things a little more and looked at a guy like Mario Cristobal. But there is no guarantee that Mario Cristobal leaves Oregon, because what he's building at Oregon, maybe he can't build at Miami. So I think that to an extent, the hire was probably the best hire Miami could have made. And let's take last year out of the example. Last year was a really bad year. No one's going to debate that, but a lot of people like him, and that's the most important thing. Is if you could build those relationships, everything else can come afterwards.
Yeah, Kevin, I think you nail in the coffin with that statement. A lot of people like Manny Diaz. They love his campaign that he's been, kind of riding on at Miami. They love the transfer portal. Personally, I really did. At first, I didn't like the Manny Diaz hire itself, because I always felt like Miami, you don't need to hire a first-year head coach. I always felt like you can get a coach with experience, with a good track record like Mark Richt. Look at the success Mark Richt had with his experience from Georgia. He was a successful coach to a certain extent at Georgia. So bringing him on board, we're number 2 in the nation, a place that we haven't seen in a long time. We're in the college football playoffs, the first rankings that came out that week. So I always felt like we could always get a coach with a lot of experience. And you're right, the whole national search thing, man, it was like less than a day. Blake James does a press conference saying we're going to have a national search. Boom. Manny Diaz is hired the next day. So, hey, it is what it is. But, what are your thoughts? Manny Diaz's transfer portal year 1, the TNM. Did you expect a 6-7 outcome going into his first year at Miami?
To an extent. I don't know if I really expected that bad of a season, because even if they had won 6 games, it wasn't like they really won any game truly comfortably at all. The FSU game had some struggles. The Louisville game was probably their best game overall, but they couldn't keep it consistent. And then when you factor in the games against the FCS opponent, I believe it was Bethune-Cookman, Central Michigan, you had the 2 losses to Conference USA opponents. There was a lot of rough patches in that season, and that combined with the poor quarterback play and just overall kind of the issues around the program, it really didn't lead to a lot of trust. And I didn't necessarily expect 6 wins, but I expected somewhere around that 7, that 8-win season where, it wasn't going to be a great year. I didn't think it was going to be that 10-win season that everyone was hoping for, or an 11-game season. Because the first and most important thing is we truly saw the growing pains. And we saw what a first-year head coach kind of happens. And, you're never going to be a consistent program. There are going to be growing pains. And, factoring into, obviously, FAU, which is something else I cover, Lane Kiffin's first year wasn't great. It started off really poorly, and towards the end of the season, they were able to pick up some steam. But when you start the year poorly, a lot of question marks arise. So I think that the most important thing was that they couldn't keep it consistent. But I'm not really necessarily shocked that they didn't have a great season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I honestly, I felt like after they blew out Louisville, I thought they were going to finish 8-4. It seemed like they were getting the ball rolling, and then things just went crashing down with the FIU game. Everything just
Yeah,
went.
I mean,
It was like a domino effect, and the 8-4 promising season wasn't going to happen anymore. And maybe that was the best thing that happened to Manny Diaz and this team. You bring in Rhett Lashley, you get De'Aaron King. I don't think we go, let's say we go 8-4, we're in a shootout in the bowl game. We win the bowl game, or maybe we lose by a touchdown or less. Jaron Williams is still your quarterback. Dan Enos is still your OC. So maybe that was a great thing, that we did go 6-7. I mean, we'll find out coming season. I want to pick your brain, Kevin. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. Do you think he would have been a great fit down in Miami? Because a lot of people, for whatever reason, they really do like Lane Kiffin as a head coach. Love to pick your brain on that subject.
So yeah, I am a big Lane Kiffin fan, and I am a little biased, obviously, being an FAU student and an FAU beat writer. But he's done a lot of good things at FAU, and he brought a program from pretty much the dirt up, and that's impressive. But I don't know if it works at a high level like Miami, where everything's different. He doesn't have the same leash that he has in FAU, because FAU could afford to give him that leash.
Right.
At a program like Miami, your leash is already short. And if you start to lose early, does it change from what happened with Manny Diaz? Because, I mean, people are already calling Manny Diaz on the hot seat. What if Lane Kiffin goes 6-7? And what if they spend a whole bunch of money to take him away from an FAU and they go 5-7 or 6-7, lose their bowl game? Do the expectations change at all? I don't think they do. And I don't think that between Manny Diaz and Lane Kiffin, the issues happen. Maybe with Lane Kiffin, you don't go 6-7 because you have the spread offense immediately. But I don't know if necessarily he would have been the best hire, because it's different when you consider an FAU program that's in a group of five that can kind of afford a shorter leash than a program like Miami,
right,
where the leash and the expectations are already high to start.
Right. No, absolutely. And Manny Diaz, he definitely does have a short leash going into year two. I'll be honest with you. I don't think 7-5, 8-5, I don't think that really gets the job done year two. I think you honestly have to go 9-3 or more with this easy schedule. So Manny Diaz, he is a first-year head coach, but he's going to have to learn quickly on this job. And that, by all means, that doesn't mean Manny Diaz isn't going to have success at another program. Look at what Ed Orgeron, look at his utter failure at Ole Miss.
Yep.
And goes on to have, I mean, it's arguably one of the better teams to win a national title at LSU. Done a hell of a job with his offensive staff, defensively with Dave Aranda. So not necessarily Manny Diaz can have a successful coaching career going into another program if it doesn't work out at Miami. Kevin, what needs to be addressed going into year two?
I mean, I think the most important thing is you have to be able to win off the bye week. So last year, it was the UNC game. They should have won that game. Let's not get it twisted. When you have a 4th and 17 to end the game, you should be winning the game. But the biggest struggles was Miami struggled to come off a bye week and start fast. And if you can't start fast after a bye week, you're not going to win games, because your bye week is kind of your most important week. Gets everyone healthy. It allows you to address a lot more problems. So if you can do that and then start the next week strong, a lot of things are different. And I mean, outside of that, if you just look at personnel, you have to have better offensive line play. You have to be able to give your quarterback, De'Aaron King, some time. I mean, Jaron Williams wasn't terrible last year. His biggest problem was that he held on to the football too long, or he was getting pressured 2 seconds after he snapped the ball. Not even 2 seconds, maybe half a second. So if you can improve that offensive line, then that offense is going to be instantly better, and that defense is going to be good either way. I mean, there's a lot of talent on that defensive line. There's a lot of talent across the thing, even if there isn't a lot of experience. But you don't really necessarily need experience if you have the talent, because sometimes talent just overrides everything.
No, absolutely. You make a great point. Jaron Williams, he did show flashes of a great quarterback. I think he threw for 397 passing yards against UNC. That's a very good job. Offensively, the reason why we lost that game is because we didn't finish drives in the red zone. We settled for field goals, and we missed those field goals. I was at the game at UNC. It was awful. I mean, 4th and 17, we gave UNC a golden opportunity. We literally gave them the game on a silver platter. It is what it is. We're moving on. What game on this schedule, Tony Kidd asked, worries you the most, Kevin, and why? He believes it's Wake Forest. I actually disagree. I don't think Wake Forest is the hardest game. They just lost their so-called star quarterback to Georgia. It's going to be a new quarterback in play. I don't think athletically or talent-wise they're even close to Miami. But to be fair, Miami and a lot of programs for some reason have a trouble to get the ball rolling in Winston-Salem. Kevin, what do you think?
So I've thought about this a lot, and I think it kind of relies on if we have fans in the stadium to start the year. So if you have fans in the stadium, there is no harder game than traveling to Blacksburg, Virginia, and having to play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is hell, and there is not a team that's going to win easily in Virginia Tech. So Miami, when you consider that Miami last year struggled against Virginia Tech, they weren't good at all against Virginia Tech, and then you add that into going to Virginia Tech, there is a lot of concern. Now, if there aren't fans, I think just talent-wise, it's either FSU because it's a rivalry game and because it's not going to be a blowout, and FSU is going to go out there, play balls to the wall. They're going to throw everything at you, and you're going to have to find ways to match it. And UNC is a very talented team. What Mac Brown is doing in North Carolina is impressive. You've got a really young quarterback with a lot of talent, and you have a linebacker there, Chaz Surratt, who used to be a quarterback, and is now one of the better linebackers in the ACC.
Hey, Kevin, I'll say this. You know what I think is going to be the most difficult game to start for the season as a whole is going to be Temple. Hear me out.
Yeah.
First game of the year.
Temple's a top team. I mean,
yeah,
Temple's an absolutely top team.
Exactly. They even have a new quarterback coming in. I think he's from Iowa State. Could be wrong. But it's the first game of the year. You didn't have spring practice. You're probably never going to play like a legit live scrimmage that you get in the spring game. It's a new offense. You don't know what to expect. It's going to be a very awkward feel going into that stadium, a completely empty stadium. It's going to be very low energy on both sides, even if it's the first game of the season. Watch out for that Temple game. It's going to be a lot closer than people think. And you're right. Imagine playing against UNC. Mac Brown is a very good coach. Some say he's a Hall of Fame college football coach. He won a national title with Vince Young at Texas. He even fired Manny Diaz after a year. He got rid of the guy. He's like, dude, this guy doesn't have it. Empty stadium, Sam Howell under center. Watch out. That could be another difficult game. And you're right, man. Miami, when they go to Blacksburg, they either win by a lot or they get blown out. It's rarely a shootout. So, man, there's a lot of tricky games with, decent opponents that Miami could lose.
I also think the UAB game, no one has mentioned that game, and it's kind of falling under the radar, but UAB has a very good defense, and they return a lot of the talent on that defense.
Yes.
And UAB last year went to the conference championship in the Conference USA. They did get blown out by FAU, but when you can make that conference championship game, that's not an easy Group of 5 opponent. That's not like playing a New Mexico or playing a 4-8 a conference or a Group of 5 team. That's playing a very good Group of 5 team that will give you a challenge. It's not going to be an easy 58-0 win. You're playing your backups in the start of the second quarter. That's just not going to happen.
Right. No, absolutely. I completely agree. UAB is a team to look out for. Remember, their program was canceled a couple years ago. They brought it back to life, and they're doing a very good job. I think they're still in Conference USA.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Yeah. So look out for UAB. That will be a tricky game. Speaking of offensive line that you mentioned will be a position group to address coming into year 2. What are your thoughts on Navon Donaldson redshirting this upcoming season?
So I think that's the right decision. I don't know if he really has the weight that you want out of your offensive guards in a spread offense. So I think the most important thing is you already have guards who can play and can immediately make the impact. So you don't really need Navon Donaldson. So if you can redshirt him, have him ready for Alabama, provide you either that center or that guard who's going to be a very good player. And, I hope that he's healthy, and I hope that, he's able to lose that weight and get into good football shape so that in 2021, when he's playing against Alabama, he's arguably not only the most talented offensive lineman, but the most experienced and arguably the most important part to an offensive lineman.
Yeah, no, I would have to completely agree with you. He came in the spring fairly overweight, gained weight. Then we don't have spring practice, couldn't get well conditioned. This is going to be a very fast-paced offense. I don't think Navon Donaldson necessarily fits this scheme. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of Miami Central Senior High School. Our entire football staff at the time went on a bus to go in-home visit just to land him. We literally went all in for Navon Donaldson. I think a redshirt year is key. And the most important thing is having him return to the program because honestly, let's be real, Kevin, once you redshirt your senior year, you most likely a lot of players do transfer out.
Yeah, I mean, and it happened with Miami's quarterback, Diaz King, redshirted last year, and he's not
Right.
in Houston anymore. So it's not a guarantee that he's back for Alabama. But if he is back for Alabama, that's a very important piece if you can get him into shape to play in a spread offense.
Hey, Kevin, with all these offseason changes, are you buying into the momentum we have right now in recruiting? I know we brought in Isaiah Walker, Jared Williams, Diaz King, got the FIU kicker, but recruiting, we're top 10 in the nation. But I feel like it's the same story over and over again. Randy Shannon had the #1 recruiting class with the Miami Northwestern Booker T. Washington guys. Didn't work out too well. Al Golden even was #1 in the nation, slowly went down to #3 and then trickled down, but had a top 10 class, was a good recruiter. Mark Richt had a top 10 class, was #1 in the nation, but once again, it trickled down. Are you buying into the recruiting momentum, or are you on a wait and see approach?
I think you have to be on a wait and see approach because the most important thing is you have to win football games. You can recruit well in the offseason all you want, but if you're not winning football games, how many guys are staying?
Right.
And how many top recruits are you convincing? Because it's great that you're in the top 2 for James Williams, and it's great that you're in contention for 5-star defensive tackle Leonard Taylor. But if you don't win games, those guys aren't coming. And so if you can't win games consistently and you can't put points on the board and prove that you're a good football program, those guys are going to go elsewhere. They're going to go to the SEC, to Florida, Georgia, schools like that, where they win games, and they win a lot of games. So if Miami can't win games, it's going to be a lot different next year. And the recruiting isn't going to be as good as it is now because there'll be something to prove that you're not where you should be as a program.
Right. I completely agree. And a lot of, people say, hey, look at Tennessee, look at UNC right now. They're top 5 in the nation in recruiting. Well, Tennessee has a lot of great recruiters, Derek Ansley, T. Martin, UNC as well. They have a lot of great recruiters, Philip Longo, Dre Bly. But what if they don't win football games this season? They're going to lose all those recruits. And I'm telling you, Miami has a statement to prove against UNC. They got to win big just to, settle the score saying, hey, we're Miami, you're UNC. This isn't basketball. So I completely agree. Let's go out. Let's win 10 games and let's win a bowl game. I feel like we never win a freaking bowl game. That's not good,
I mean, the Sun Bowl gives me PTSD every day I look at that damn stadium.
I know we're either playing in Boise, Idaho, we're playing in El Paso, Texas, or now we're playing in the Bronx. The weirdest locations, but whatever. Kevin, are you a fan of the transfer portal? I mean, I feel like this is a fair argument because if it doesn't work out another season, we have to reevaluate this. I feel like as a program.
So yeah, I think the transfer portal is always a good thing if you can use it properly. I think the most important thing, in my opinion, for the transfer portal is it shouldn't be to build your team. It should be to fill in holes. So, for example, Miami had the hole at quarterback, and they went out and filled it through a graduate transfer quarterback who has a lot of talent.
Right.
That's the most important thing. You can't be filling kind of the most important core pieces of your team through the transfer portal because it's always an issue there, and it's always a risk. Transfers don't always work out. So when you can recruit your own guys and you can get them in as freshmen and you can build them up from there, it's a lot different. But if you bring them in after a year or two at a program where they didn't play a lot, maybe their confidence is shot and they don't have that same consistency, it's not a guarantee that they do the same thing. So a guy like Jalen Phillips, he's a top recruit, top 5-star recruit, one of the best players in the nation coming out of high school. He struggled a little bit at UCLA, struggled to stay healthy. If he doesn't gain that confidence back at Miami, I think he will. But if he doesn't, it's not going to look like a good transfer. But
right.
I think the most important thing is you have to use the transfer portal to your advantage because it's the thing that you have. And so if you can't recruit all your holes, use it to fill in those holes because a lot of the times you can get impact players who, if it's a graduate guy from a power or a group of 5 program who showed really well, played really well, but couldn't, keep the same consistency as another team.
No, I agree. And I think you're going to find more success, hopefully, with transfer portal players that are in your program more than 1 year. Look at Bubba Bolden. Let's say, for example, he was only at Miami for 1 year. Well, he only played four games due to the NCAA circumstances, and then he got injured. He played very well those 4 games, but imagine if he was only there for 1 year. Thankfully, we have a couple more years with Bubba Bolden, maybe even 1 more year. Look at Tommy Kennedy, though. He only played 1 snap against Louisville. I mean, that's really not a contribution to your team at all. So,
and that's the problem is you have to be able to get these guys in to a point where you can build them up. So you can't be bringing them in fall camp because then they won't have the same time to get used to a playbook, get used to a
Right.
system, get used to a coaching staff. But if you can bring them into spring and really kind of ease them in, you have a better chance of getting a guy who can make an impact. Now, obviously, Tommy Kennedy didn't work out, but the idea of bringing in an offensive lineman transfer who could play well was the option.
Right. Right. And absolutely. And hopefully we did not swing and miss with Jared Williams. He will be a instant impact player, which I think he will be a game one starter, and he can really help out our offensive line. Kevin, what position group are you most excited about, and which position group are you really worried about?
So, I mean, I think the obvious answer is the defensive line. You have two of the best defensive ends. It's not the two best in the nation in Greg Rousseau and Quincy Roche. And then you mentioned you have Jalen Phillips behind them. You're not going to be able to double team that offensive line or that defensive line, excuse me. You're going to have to put one body on a body and let them work. So I think that's the most important thing. Then in the middle, you have some talent. A guy like Silvera could really step up and become a consistent player through the middle. I also want to say that I think the running back group is also really well. You have Cam Harris. You have two true freshmen who are going to be really talented in the future, Don Chaney Jr. and the speedster, Jalen Knighton. I think I'm most concerned about the cornerback room.
Yes.
Al Blades Jr. is a very solid player, and he's going to provide very solid success on the outside. But outside of him, you don't really have that true second corner. DJ Ivey had some moments, but he also had some moments of a lot of brain farts and a lot of positions where he got caught out of position. So you have to hope that you get more of the good than the bad. And then outside of him, you have guys like Corey Couch, but those guys didn't play much last season. And, are they ready for the college football circumstances? And if they're not ready, then you're screwed. And you're going to get thrown the ball. You're going to get thrown on a lot. And a lot of teams are going to be able to burn you deep and burn you in positions where you can't just stop it because you don't have good corners.
No, we're on the same page. Cornerback group every day. I think about how lack of depth is very concerning. A lot of people say, "Oh, Corey Couch, he's going to be a stud." Well, man, Corey Couch doesn't really have a lot of experience in college football. What if, God forbid, we suit up against a Clemson week 1, or like we suited up against LSU? We will get eaten alive. And God forbid there's any injuries. It's a very limited, inexperienced group.
I mean, if you have an injury, everything changes because you don't have the depth. You're not a 5 deep or 6 deep team where, a team like, I'm not really sure, but a team like Clemson, if they have one injury, they have guys who can step up immediately. Right. Miami really doesn't have that right now in the cornerback room. And that's why I would have liked to see them go after a transfer cornerback. There was a few in the market. Miko Dotson had a lot of interceptions and was very successful for FAU. He went to FSU. I would have liked to see Miami go after him because even if he doesn't start for you, he's a rotational piece that at least provides extra depth. He can play immediately, and he has experience playing at a decently high level at FAU.
And Kevin, speaking of cornerbacks, Miko Dotson, I remember when he came in the transfer portal, led the NCAA in INTs, goes to Florida State, like you said. I was really curious why we weren't aggressive enough to go after him. Are you a fan of Mike Rumph, or would you like to see another position coach at hand?
No, I think Mike Rumph is a fine option. A lot of people don't like him because he has this very set, guidelines for a cornerback, but every team has that. Every program has what they want to see out of a cornerback. So just because Miami wants to see these 6'2" or these 6'1" corners who are very physical, that doesn't mean it's bad. You just have to find the right pieces to do that. And we've seen him develop a lot of players. Trajan Bandy was a very consistent player under him. He's in the NFL now, and he's got a really good chance to make that roster. And even on the roster right now, Al Blade has NFL potential if he can continue to take that next step, and I think he can do it under Rumph. So I don't think Rumph is the issue. I just think you need to figure out guys who fit what he wants and then use that to your advantage.
No, absolutely. And, Rumph does, he does miss on some guys. He's not the best recruiter in the nation. I think we can all agree on that. But, he does, land some good players. Isaiah Dunson was a nice steal from Florida State. Marcus Clark was a great get as well. So was, I forgot his name real quick. God, I can't think of it right now. But, no, he does get Christian Williams, 4-star recruit.
Yes, Christian Williams.
Commits into Alabama, goes into Alabama late in the recruiting game, flips him. So he has done some nice things on the recruiting trail. I'm not saying he's the best recruiter. Would you rather have a recruiter or developer on the staff?
I think I'd rather have a developer because, recruiting is only one part of every equation. And when you're building a team, it's a lot like a pie chart. You have to be able to recruit, you have to be able to develop, and you have to be able to win games. So, you don't really always need a great recruit because if you can develop guys properly, you can take those 3-star guys with the build or the size, the speed, the things that the peripheral things. Then you could teach them the technique. You could teach them how to play cornerback. If you just recruit well, you're not going to develop well, and you're going to have a lot of 5-star and 4-star guys who never take that next step because they don't develop well at the college level. So I think I'd much rather have a developer and just kind of hope that you have enough recruiters on your staff where you can go into areas, or you have enough trust in the local programs where you're able to get into the room with teams like Miami Northwestern and get their guys like they're doing now.
Just to answer the question on my part, I think you need a little bit of both. I think you need your ace recruiters and then your coaches.
Yeah.
You know, Stephen Fields, he's arguably one of the best recruiters in the nation. You know, Rhett Lashley, he's a great recruiter, but he can develop quarterbacks as well. Garen Justice, I don't know what he's going to bring to the table, but he might bring in a lot of talent, which is what he's showing. He doesn't really miss when he goes all in on a recruit.
He doesn't.
So
and Garen Justice was also really good at FAU. He was really good at UNLV. There is a history of him being a good offensive line coach. Now, obviously, being a good offensive line coach at UNLV is a lot different from being a good offensive line coach at Miami. Those programs are on completely different spectrums. One's in the North Pole, one's in the South Pole in terms of the college football landscape. But, you know, there's at least experiences with him. And more importantly, he's already brought in a lot of talent. He went in, he brought in Isaiah Walker, who was in Florida. He had committed, he had signed to Florida, and then enter the transfer portal, and 2 weeks later, he's a Miami Hurricane. I mean, that's impressive any way you cut it.
Absolutely. And to get Jared Williams away from Baylor as well. Baylor was his second choice.
Yep.
A lot of people thought he was going to go to Baylor as well. So I thought that was a great job as well. He's definitely proven that he can hang with the Power 5 recruiters at a elite level. Is there anyone on the staff where you kind of question them, like, you know, it's kind of getting around time where, you know, maybe Miami should part ways, or maybe should be reevaluated at the end of this season?
I mean, I think there are a few guys on the defensive staff, maybe a guy like Blake Baker, if he doesn't put it all together this year at the defensive coordinator position. But I'm not sure yet, because, again, there's only 1 year, and there's only 1 year for a lot of these coaches.
Right.
So we don't know what they can bring to the table when they are able to get their own guys in. Because, you know, a guy like Garen Justice, he recruited well in the beginning, but I want to see what he does with one of his recruiting classes. What does he do when he brings in guys like he likes? Guys like Ryan Rodriguez, Michael McLaughlin from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. What does he do with those guys who are a part of his staff and a part of his, you know, his room, and guys that he wanted to bring in? Because, you know, if you recruit well with guys that you didn't want to bring in, it's a lot different from when you recruit well with guys that you truly want to bring in and develop.
No, I completely agree. You know, let's see, you know, what this staff can do after a couple years. Obviously, take the Dabo Swinney model. He has a very strong core around him. He kept for a very long time.
Yep.
And then after so long, you know, was it Jeff Scott? He goes and gets the USF job, but Brett Venables has still been his right-hand man, his defensive coordinator for a long time. You saw that with Frank Beamer and Bud Foster as well. So to maintain your coaching staff is very key. I've always preached that on this channel. We can have the best staff offensively right now, but if we do not maintain our offensive staff, we can lose out.
Yep.
Do you believe in Rhett Lashley's offense, Kevin? Do you think it will be an instant impact this upcoming season, or it's going to take a couple years to get his system down packed?
I think it's an instant impact because, you know, if you look at what Miami has in terms of personnel, a lot of it fits the spread offense. Their wide receivers fit the spread offense. Their quarterback fits the spread offense. And when you have the fits for a spread offense and you bring in a coach who has played the spread offense and he's done really well at it, SMU is one of the better offenses, not only in the group of five, but in the nation. They scored a lot. They ran a lot of plays. They gained a lot of yards, and they put teams in position where, you know, their defense wasn't great. It wasn't elite, but it was good enough where they were able to win a lot of games. So I think it works at Miami because, you know, that defense is going to be good. So if you can have that offense who scores 35 points a game, like Rhett Lashley's offense might at Miami, you're talking about an offense that could lead you to 10 wins, that could lead you to 11 wins, that could even lead you to I don't want to say it, but lead you to a conference championship and playoff series. But let's obviously pump the brakes on those first. You got to obviously make the conference championship to win it. So,
right.
You know, I'm excited for the offense. I am a little concerned given that you didn't get the spring camp to fully install the beginning parts of the playbook, because that's where that's where spring camp is very important, is the ability to install the basics of the playbook and get everyone kind of comfortable. Then you can use fall camp and obviously the kind of beginning part of the season to get everything situated and get 100% locked in with it. But if you don't have that spring camp, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to install the offense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting. I know they say it's very simple. Last year, they said Dan Enos' offense was complex, which it was.
Yeah, I mean,
It was very vanilla. It just didn't work out.
yeah, and that is true. A lot of what Brett Lashley does is simple. It's a lot of things where, it's get the ball to the playmakers and let the playmakers make the plays. So a guy like D. Wiggins really stands out because he's fast, he's tall, he's athletic. You just get him the ball, you let him do him. So it's going to be a lot different from last year where you don't really have the complexity to it. It's going to be very simple. And that's why they run a lot of no huddle, because, as simple as it is, if you continue to run no huddle and continue to get the defense tired, it doesn't matter if they know the plays, because if you have more athletes than them, you'll win the game at that point.
Kevin, a lot of people are really high on this recruiting class, saying it's going to be one of the best of all time, possibly. Are you as high on this recruiting class as of right now? I know there's a lot of recruits we're still fighting for, with Jake Garcia, Cameron Kitchens, Amari Daniels. Seems like he's trending his way to Miami. We could even land James Williams. We're fighting Georgia. We were not in his top 3. Somehow we made it to his top 2. I don't know how that works. Are you as high as other people with this class?
I mean, I think there's a lot of reason to be high. You went in and you brought Romello Brinson, and he looked like he was a Georgia or Texas A&M lock. And you went in and you said, come to Miami. We'll prove to you what we are as a program. And they brought him in. And I think in a lot of ways, the coronavirus pandemic, the dead period, helped them, because when that happens, it is a lot easier for you to have relationships with guys if you already have those relationships. So Miami has had relationships with guys like Romello Brinson for a few years now. So when the pandemic happened and he wasn't able to go visit Georgia or able to go visit Texas to A&M, you had to look with already what you had. And he knew Miami, he knew the coaches there, and Miami was able to kind of jump back into that race late. And I'm excited about those offensive line commits. I mentioned them earlier, Rodriguez, McLaughlin, 2 very good recruits, guys who are going to provide talent in the long run. If Miami can get a few of those guys out of the blank period right now, if you can get a guy like James Williams, a guy like Jake Garcia, a guy like Cam Kitchens, you change your recruiting class a lot, and you go from having a good recruiting class to having a very good recruiting class, and maybe going from a top 15 recruiting class to potentially going into the top 5, the top 7, and you're talking about a team and a group of guys who could be the next, like almost the class of 2021, where when you look back 4 years from now, 5 years from now, you go, this is where the program really changed. This one recruiting class is where everything changed. So I'm excited now, but I do have to see how they finish this recruiting class.
Right.
And obviously, none of these guys are guarantees to be Miami Hurricanes until they sign on the dotted line, they show up on campus, and they suit up for game 1 against Alabama. Until that happens, none of these guys are guarantees to be on the roster.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think, like you said, the pandemic, I think, worked in Miami's favor, because there was no out-of-state recruiting. You could not go to Texas. You could not go to California. Mm-hmm. Recruits couldn't go to out-of-state schools and visit and talk to coaches. Everything was done virtually. But Miami, I mean, hey, they're in the best fertile recruiting ground in college football, in South Florida, in the state of Florida. They really didn't have to go anywhere. So winning battles like Romello Brinson really sends a message. But to win 2 recruiting battles over Texas A&M and other SEC schools, I think that is huge, because we have the number 3 tight end in the nation, Elijah Arroyo, from the state of Texas, and we snagged him over Jimbo Fisher and James Coley, who are very good recruiters. So I think that says a lot about your program and the direction it's heading. And also, man, that Jake Garcia trend on Twitter, like, hey,
that's psycho, man.
Oh man, he either loves the attention or he's just like over it. It's one way or the other, man.
It's just crazy at this point. It was kind of weird at first. It was like, oh man, Jake Garcia, this is trending. Then it's like, it's still trending. It's been like 2 weeks. I will say this: Miami fans, when they want to recruit, they get crazy. And when they want to recruit, they'll do everything in their power to help get that recruit if it's possible. And I'm convinced that they'd show up to Jake Garcia's house if they could. And obviously, I'm not recommending doing that. Obviously, please don't go to his house and start banging on his door, but yelling for him to come to Miami. But they're crazy, and Miami will do whatever. Miami fans will do whatever it takes for them to help get a recruit in. And if they can get a guy like Jake Garcia, man, this would be a crazy good recruiting class, and you'd have a quarterback who could be your quarterback for 3 years, and then you go to the NFL. I mean.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the thing that I got to give a lot of credit to Manny Diaz is not giving up on Jake Garcia. He took a visit to Miami, did a mini workout with Dan Enos. He chose USC over Miami and Nebraska. Manny Diaz never gave up on Jake Garcia. He kept recruiting him. Even when Rhett Lashley came in, he said, hey, you got to contact this kid. He's going to be really good.
Yep.
Miller Moss commits to USC. It's game on. I think we're in a great position. The relationship is very strong. I really think we have a shot with Jake Garcia. And I think
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. And I still think the most important thing is you got to win games. Show Jake Garcia that your offense is not a fluke, and that everything about this offense isn't just it's this, that, it could be this, and it could be great. Show them that it is great, because you want to bring a guy like Jake Garcia in, win damn football games, and he'll want to come, because you have, let's be honest, no one logo is as powerful as Miami is. Miami, you can put that logo on anything, and guys will know what it is. And people commit to the logo sometimes. So if they can get Miami, or if Jake Garcia can go to Miami, and Miami can get a guy like Garcia, that changes everything about your recruiting class. That changes everything about your future.
And Kevin, speaking of quarterbacks, Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, he released an article the other day. A couple of players, anonymous, they didn't go public with their names, said Tyler Van Dyke was the real deal, and they wouldn't be surprised if he's named starting quarterback for 2021. Who do you like in the quarterback room moving forward in the post-D'Eriq King era?
So, I think the obvious answer is Tyler Van Dyke. A lot of people were a little concerned when he committed to Miami after Rhett Lashley, because they looked at the 247 rankings and the 247 position where they had him as a quote-unquote pro-style offense. But he ran a lot of spread concepts in high school, and he played basically out of shotgun for a lot of it. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of NFL talent. He's a very smart kid. He kind of knows what to look for. And I don't know if he starts in 2021, because a guy like N'Kosi Perry will benefit a lot from playing in spread offense. And, obviously we've seen what he can be as a player. The Virginia Tech game last year was a great example. Down 28-0, you bring him in.
Right.
He wills you back to almost a win, and it probably should have been a win if you could take a field goal. But, I think N'Kosi Perry will start week 1 against Alabama, because he has the experience. He's played in some big games. He's played against Florida State, and he's able to win those games. I think Van Dyke's going to have a very good career in college, whether it's with Miami, whether it's with another program. But that's exactly why, Jake Garcia isn't exactly a necessity, but more of a want, because you have Tyler Van Dyke, who is very talented. And, I think if he can start and he can prove that, he gets the trust of his players around him, gets the trust of his offensive line, I'm not going to say no to starting him, because that cannot be a thing that I say, because I don't see him every day in practice. But if a guy like Rhett Lashley likes him, then that's exactly what I would trust, because Rhett Lashley has proven that he can make it work with any quarterback.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. What he did with Shane Buechele was beautiful. He was rejected by Texas, comes to SMU with open arms, and they turn him into a star, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So, he is definitely a quarterback guru. He can definitely advance the play at the quarterback position. Here's my thing about opening up with Alabama. I feel like that is Miami's Super Bowl, and I think Manny Diaz acknowledges that as well.
Absolutely.
You got to go all in. And when I think of all in, this is what I picture. I think Manny Diaz, he gets a look at what he has going into spring practice, going into the 2021 season. If Manny Diaz likes what he sees, hey, he's going to stick with that guy. But if he doubts, a few doubts in his head, hey, I don't see it against Alabama. I don't think this N'Kosi Perry, I don't think Tyler Van Dyke, I don't think Peyton Matoke, I don't think anybody in that room can give us a solid win over Alabama. I think he goes back to the transfer portal. I think we've seen that, year in and year out. I think Manny Diaz wants to play the quarterback in this offensive system that Rhett Lashley wants as well. So I don't know if we stick with N'Kosi Perry. I don't even know if Tyler Van Dyke gets the nod. We could even see another transfer portal quarterback the way it's showing.
Yeah, let's not eliminate the possibility that they pull almost an Alabama and they go in, or Oklahoma, excuse me, they go in, they get 2 transfer quarterbacks, and they let them play. Because as good as Nkosi Perry could be, or as good as Tyler Van Dyke could be, the biggest thing is you don't let elite or good talent prevent you from getting elite talent. So if there's another elite graduate transfer quarterback, who's saying you don't go after him because of what the difference he could bring to the program? And if De'Ara King comes in and is a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback, that opens up a lot of more possibilities with other quarterbacks who come through the grad transfer portal because they saw a guy like De'Ara King do it and go, well, maybe that could be me as well because I know what they have.
No, absolutely, Kevin. And we spoke about quarterbacks. What other, skill position group on the offense? Maybe Jalen Knighton, maybe Mark Pope at receiver. Who do you think is going to thrive in this offense that really wasn't playing well under Enos?
So I have 2 guys. I have 2 wide receivers. D. Wiggins, I think, is going to be very good this year. We saw kind of his potential last year against Louisville, where he took the top off that Louisville secondary. He had a lot of big plays, and he helped Jaron Williams break a school record for passing touchdowns. He's very fast. He's got 4.4, legit 4.4 speed. He's 6'4". He can win in a lot of different ways. He's going to be very good on that outside. If he can clean up some of the drop problems that we saw from his freshman year in 2018, there's a very good chance that he's a very consistent player on the outside. Then I also want to go a little bit deeper down the depth chart. Keyshawn Smith is one of the last recruits from the 2021 class. He showed up very late in the process, early recruiting day. He decommitted from Washington State, committed the next day or I believe it was actually the same day, to Miami. And, there's a lot of talk about him being very underrated, and I completely agree. He's a very fast player. He's 6'1" right now, but there is a very good chance that he could even grow from that frame. From what I understand, his brothers are very tall. His father is very tall. There's a chance he could grow to be maybe 6'3" if he hits a growth spurt, and he could be that secondary outside receiver alongside D. Wiggins in the future. And that is very important to have. As good as it is to have one good outside receiver, imagine what Miami's offense would be if they had 2 all-conference, potentially all-American. Now, obviously, winning an all-American spot is challenging in college football. But if you can have 2 all-conference wide receivers in the ACC, that changes a lot of your fortune. That makes your offense a lot easier because it doesn't put as much pressure on your quarterback.
No, I completely agree. D. Wiggins, it's shown he's going to be a home run threat moving forward, which is what, Rhett Lashley's offense. And De'Ara King, I heard that was his favorite ball to throw, so it could be a really nice connection. Jalen Knighton, for me, I think when he flipped from Florida State, I thought, hey, we might have something rolling here. In this offense, I think he's going to be explosive. I think he's going to be scary. I think he's going to be the playmaker Miami has missed since Amon Richards' freshman year. So I'm really high on Jalen Knighton. I would be shocked if he doesn't succeed at Miami. I think that high of him. I'm going to say, and not the most shocking name, but Will Mallory. He has all the—
I like that. I like that.
He has great athletic ability. Can he catch the football? I don't know. That is very skeptical regarding that matter. But I think if you put him in this offense, he will be very athletic. I think he was a track star in high school as well. So
I believe he was. He did run a little bit of track. And, I mean, even outside of him, people don't talk about him, but Larry Hodges is a very talented player. He showed up at points last season.
Yeah.
He's been a very good player. He's got the tape where you kind of go, ooh, he's got some things that you like. And, God forbid you have an injury at tight end, or even if Miami just wants to run 3 tight ends a lot, because you can run 3 tight ends and you can do it so where, Brevin Jordan plays a few snaps, then you take him out, you keep him fresh, and you bring in Will Mallory, then you take him out, you bring in Larry Hodges. You could Larry Hodges could be a very good player in not only the future, but he can make an impact this year. Now, will he be like a 500-yard receiver? Probably not. But he could easily get you 250 yards, 350 yards, be that kind of that secondary, that tertiary option for your quarterback.
Absolutely. Kevin, what is your season prediction for the 2020 Miami Hurricanes?
I'm going to go 10-2. I think that you can very easily win 10 games with this schedule. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, 9 wins should be the bare minimum. If you do not win 9 games with this team, you probably are not fit to be the head coach at Miami. I think you can easily win 10 games. I think you could win 11 games. I think you could potentially go undefeated if everything goes your way. So I think the biggest priority is to win 10 games, get into a good bowl game, and hopefully win that bowl game. Obviously, you're probably not beating Clemson this year. Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, if not the best quarterback in the nation. And I don't know if Miami really has the answers to stop a guy like Trevor Lawrence, But if you can just get to the conference championship game, get to a good bowl game, there's a lot of promise. And that's the most important thing is, this year doesn't have to be the year you win the national championship, but just show promise. Show that, that 6-7 year was a fluke, and that, it's not going to be a consistent thing where, you go 6-7, then you go 10-2, then you go 6-7 again. Let's continue to build towards, what the goal is, which is a national championship. That's the goal for any Power 5 team. That's the goal for any team. So if you can get to the point where you can win that national championship or compete for the national championship, a lot of things change. But I think absolutely 10 wins should be expected, and it should absolutely happen this year.
I'm going to say I think 10 wins is definitely fair. The schedule's so easy. I mean, fairly, we could have won 10 games last season. If you look at the schedule, we really could have. I'm going to say 9-3. Just because, it's I would just want to be realistic, kind of an outside perspective. Manny Diaz's first year was hideous. I mean,
there's really no good word to say. It was hideous. I mean, it was atrocious.
And, just knowing this football team, I want to see how they respond after a loss, because if we either win 7 straight games or we can literally lose 7 straight games. That
is absolutely the most important part, is how you respond to a loss. Because last year when you lost, you took another 3 losses after that, and you kind of plateaued. So I want to see, as you mentioned, I want to see what happens if they lose a good close game. What happens if they lose to Temple week 1? Do they respond? Do they go, okay, so we lose to Temple week 1, let's win the next 11 games, let's prove that we're a good football team? Or if they lose to Temple, do they then, kind of snowball into another 2 losses, another 3 losses, then you're 6-7 again? And we're talking about, is Manny Diaz the option at coach? Is Rhett Lashley the option at offensive coordinator? I just want to see what happens if they lose a game. How do they respond? And, who steps up and says, we're not going to have this happen again, and we're not going to lose another game, and we're going to win a few more games, and we're going to try to get back on the right foot.
Yeah, no, if we lose the Temple, watch out. It could be a drowning season. It'll be fight or flight mode every game. And I think our fan base will literally go nuts. Like literally, go crazy if Manny Diaz loses to Temple in this program. I mean, will he lose his job after 1 game? I mean, it could be that.
I'd hope not. I mean, if they get blown out like 62-0, maybe, because if you lose 62-0 to Temple's a very good team. They don't have as much talent as even teams in their own conference. But what they don't have in talent, they make up for in chemistry. They make up for in coaching. If you lose by a few scores, Manny Diaz is going to go from his seat's getting a little warm to holy crap, that seat might be on fire.
Right.
Hopefully he wins that game. And, if you lose a game, make sure it's to a team that, is at least at your level somewhat. A team like North Carolina, a team like Virginia Tech, even a team like Michigan State. If you lose to a team like Michigan State, I don't think a lot of guys would blame you, because Michigan State has the potential to be a good team, and you're traveling up to Michigan, you're traveling up to East Lansing, and that's not going to be an easy place to play if they're a fan.
Kevin, who's in your college football playoff and your national title?
Okay. Clemson, I think, is going to be the number 1 team in the country. I think Clemson has a lot of talent, obviously, and they have a lot of talent in key spots. Obviously, losing Justin Ross will hurt them, but I think that that's going to certainly be a team to watch out for. Number 2, I think, is Ohio State. Ohio State, a very talented team. Justin Fields, a very good quarterback. Ryan Day, a very good head coach. They've got a lot of talent like Clemson. Number 3, I think, is Oregon. Mario Cristobal has done a very good job building something at Oregon. You do lose Justin Herbert, but you do have options at quarterback, and that defense is going to be very good. That defensive line has Kayvon Thibodeau, who was one of the best freshmen last year, who has the potential to continue doing it next season. And number 4, I'm going to go a little bit off the board. I think the number 4 team in the college football playoffs will be Texas. I think that Texas has a lot of talent, and I think Texas could win a few games there. And if they don't have fans, that Red River rivalry then becomes the game of who can just outplay the other team. And obviously everyone's then probably going to click this and go, "Oh, Texas is back." I don't know, but I don't know if a team like LSU has a lot of question marks. I mean, they have question marks at shot call or under center. They have question marks of who replaces Joe Brady. Was last year's LSU team a product of Joe Brady, or was they product of the turn in culture? A team like Oklahoma has a redshirt freshman coming under center. He has not had, I don't think he has any college experience. So there are question marks there. That number 4 spot's really up for grabs this season, unlike other years. There are probably 5, 6 teams who could truly compete for that number 4 spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah, no, I think Oklahoma's trending down. Spencer Rattler coming in, young what's the word for underclassmen, redshirt freshman, like you said. Lincoln Riley, for some reason, they get to the college football playoffs, but they pull in Notre Dame. They get blown out every time. You got to have a good defense.
It's a tradition unlike any other, really.
I mean, you can have all the Heisman Trophy quarterbacks you want, but you got to have a good defense to counter with. So it'll be interesting. Like I have Texas on the rise as well. Completely new offensive staff. You got Sam Ehlinger. He's going to be a senior, I believe, coming up this season. Tom Herman is on the hot seat at Texas. Mm-hmm. It is sizzling. You can find out
that if they go 7-6, 8-4 this year, he's as good as fired. I mean, he is as good as gone at that point.
And UGA as well. I mean, I think that was a little bit of an insurance to bring in JT Daniels when you brought in Jamie Newman. I don't know. Maybe Kirby Smart saw Jamie Newman play live and he's like, hey, he might not get it done in the SEC from the ACC. It's 2 different conferences we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And 2 completely different play styles. And obviously, a team like Wake Forest would probably not be anywhere near as good as they would in the SEC.
Right. Yeah, no. Wake Forest is the Vanderbilt of the ACC, basically. We got 10 minutes left on the show. Kevin, are you available for some rapid fire real quick, guys?
Yeah, I'm free if everyone has any questions.
Awesome. So if you guys have any questions, please in the comment section, write them down and we'll discuss it real quick. And we got 10 minutes left. And if nobody has questions, we'll call it a wrap. Kevin, are you a Cubs fan, like die hard?
No, I'm actually a Giants fan. I just don't have a Giants hat.
You just don't.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I got the Cubs hat in Chicago when I went to a game. I do actually like the Cubs. Like, I'm not a Cubs fan, but I do like a lot of players on the Cubs. So
okay, fair. That's fair. I mean, I think Wrigley Field is caters to any home, any cleanup hitter. So I've been to Wrigley. It's a very nice field, no doubt about it. Love Wrigleyville. Very cool. Do we play a full season or not, Kevin?
I don't think we will. I really don't. Okay. Obviously, we've seen the cases of the coronavirus trending upwards, and if they can't figure this out, what happens if a player gets it, or what happens if a coach gets it? Right. Then you have to quarantine 2 weeks, and everything changes. I don't know if we'll see a full season, and if we do, I don't know if it'll happen at the same schedule. Maybe we'll see it kind of start in January, then you go from January to maybe the end of the academic calendar in June.
I'll answer this question, and you can answer as well. Do you think we'll even have a season? Personally, for me, as of right now, it's a long time. A lot of things can change in a couple months. I think we do have a season. I will be optimistic and say we will. What about you, Kevin?
I'll trend on the optimistic side and say we'll have a season. Just kind of unaware of the actual details of how that season works.
Other than freshmen, who will be the breakout player on offense and defense?
On defense, I think it will be Al Blades. I think Al Blades will step up this year and truly become the all-conference cornerback that he has the potential to be. And then on offense, I'm going to continue to go with D. Wiggins, but I'm also going to mention Mark Pope because he can play well in the slot and be a very consistent player.
No, I'm going to say offensively, De'Aaron King. We need good quarterback play. I mean, Brock Berlin was allowed to take a snap in the regular season. It was one game, so that needs to change. Defensively, I'm going to say Gervin Hall. He showed flashes last season of the potential he can be. I thought he was very good at some points of the season. So Gervin Hall, I think, will be very good this year. Do you like Amari Carter at striker?
I think that's a good fit for him. I mean, he's obviously probably not a starter at safety this year because you have Bubba Bull and you have Gervin Hall, and a position like striker allows him to do a lot of different things. Drop back in coverage, rush the quarterback when necessary. I think it's a good fit for him overall.
Yeah, no, I like him a lot. I think Amari Carter, if he was playing where there wasn't, what's the helmet-to-helmet contact, targeting rule, I think he'd be an NFL prospect at this point.
Absolutely. I mean,
Miami top 5 recruiting needs. Kind of what positions do you think?
Obviously, you probably need to get another quarterback. I think you should be recruiting quarterback every year. I'm going to go James Williams overall. If you can get James Williams, that changes everything about your defense. Continue to build that defense or that offensive lineup. find replacements for that defensive line at defensive end, maybe even at defensive tackle, and then finally continue to build depth in the cornerback room and continue to get guys who could play cornerback.
Yeah, cornerback is the priority. Quarterback play as well. I'm going to say linebacker as well, man. We have a lot of guys, but a lot of guys are injury prone that haven't played in a couple years. So get some new legs in there, get some fresh legs, see what they can do. Obviously, the Bermuda Triangle, whatever you want to call them, wasn't the best legacy left at Miami, but they were our starters the past 4 years. So it's a new legacy moving forward.
Yeah, probably need to get one or two more in that linebacker room to really truly be that good linebacker room that you want.
Absolutely. Which freshman will have the best season?
True freshman, I think it's Keyshawn Smith, because he can come in, he can make an impact at wide receiver position that doesn't truly have a star. If we're talking about redshirt freshmen, guys who didn't play a lot last season or at all last season, Avery Huff, a really athletic linebacker, a guy that is very talented and has a lot of potential. I think he fits in immediately as the starting linebacker right now, and then 2 years down the road, I think he could still be a starter for Miami.
I'm going to say Jalen Knight, and I'm going to stick with it. I think he's going to be a very special player. It's going to be the Dalvin Cook effect this time at Miami. Tables have turned. If what you said happens, tons of kids will sit out. They will not miss the draft to play. That means they would have to wait another year to be drafted. Do you see this happening? Players sitting out this upcoming season? If football is canceled?
I mean, I don't know if it'll happen with, the fringe guys. I don't think of a guy like a fifth-round pick will sit out. But I could see a guy like Trevor Lawrence sitting out, because Trevor Lawrence kind of already has his draft stock kind of built in stone. He's going to be a first-round pick, and he benefits from leaving for college, getting a good NFL trainer, and developing for the NFL draft and potentially the NFL combine.
Yeah, no, that it's funny. Like, multiple people have brought that up. Trevor Lawrence will sit out this year. Hey, that will be interesting. He really doesn't have much to prove anymore in the college football level. I mean, he's played his 2 years. He played at a national level. I think he played for the national title twice. So
yeah, I mean, he won the national championship.
There you go.
As a freshman.
So he's going to be a first-round pick. So he's getting his money.
I mean, absolutely.
Do you think Mike Leach or Lane Kiffin will bring the state of Mississippi in the SEC?
I think it's more Mike Leach than Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin. I think he's going to be a terrific, in the future for Ole Miss. But Mike Leach is one of the best offensive head coaches in football. And if players buy into what he's playing, it will work a lot better than it did at Washington State, because you have better athletes there.
I'm going to say Lane Kiffin gets the job done. I think Mike Leach, Mississippi State, it's not going to work out. He is an odd personality. Sometimes it takes the right guy to, get with the right program. Mississippi State, I just don't think it clicks. I think it was fine at Washington State. I really think Lane Kiffin has learned from his past jobs. I mean, you saw
I think he has well.
You covered him. So I think Lane Kiffin gets it done. And the thing about Mississippi as a state, they're never really good at football.
I mean, and it's shocking when you consider how much talent should come out of Mississippi.
Will Cam Harris run for 1,000 yards?
I don't think he will, because you have so much talent in that running back room, and you have so many mouths to feed. Not only we mentioned the two freshmen a lot, Jalen Knight and Don Chaney, but you also talk about a guy like Robert Burns, who has shown out in a lot of different positions.
I'm going to say he does, but I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying as well. I just think if this offense lives up to the potential, running as many plays as he did at SMU, I think everyone is going to tear it up. But hey, that's best case scenario. If Manny Diaz does go ahead, fires Blake Baker, first off, I think that would be an awful sign of the season. I think Blake Baker's here to stay unless things go completely south. Who do you think Manny Diaz should be the future defensive coordinator at Miami?
If Manny Diaz doesn't take that position himself, I'm going to look at a guy like Glenn Spencer at FAU. They had a very good defense. He's out at USF. I could see him moving up the ranks, and a team like Miami would be a perfect fit for him, a perfect fit for the defense he runs, and he could be a very good defensive coordinator at Miami.
I'm going to say Derek Ansley of Tennessee. He is an outstanding recruiter, kills in recruiting, and I know he can kill it down here in Miami as well. Last question, Kevin. How many points per game are we going to project under Rhett Lashley's offense?
I'm going to go 36 points per game, and they're going to be a top 15 offense in the country. They're going to score a lot of points, and they're going to win a lot of games because of it.
I'll tell you what, Kevin, if we're averaging 36 points per game, it's going to be a great year.
Absolutely.
Kevin, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a pleasure. And man, stay safe out there with everything going on, man. And you have a bright career in front of you.
Appreciate it, man. Stay safe as well, and glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Kevin, have a great day, man. And thank you
You
everyone
too.
for coming on.